A few weeks ago, I was at the museum, sorting through old materials. I worked there as an aerospace engineer, but history wasn't really my thing. Still, I found the Soviet space program fascinating. As I sifted through dust-covered boxes, I came across one that was sealed. It had marking on it. Luna, 1989. The box felt heavy, like it had a secret inside. I opened it slowly, and my heart sank. Inside were photographs and reports. The pictures showed strange, dark objects found on the moon. I felt a shiver creep down my spine. Had I been staring too long? I thought I saw shadows flickering on the edges of my vision. I tried to shake it off. It was my mind playing tricks, wasn't it? Maybe the museum just needed maintenance. I stood up and went to the back. That's when I heard it. Static. It was deeper than any noise I had heard before, like a heartbeat. I thought about shouting for help, but my voice got stuck in my throat. I pressed my ear against the wall. The static faded, leaving me in a heavy silence. Then a sudden noise made me jump. It was an old film reel, running behind a glass case. I saw blurred images of figures moving. They looked like faces from long ago, staring right at me. I blinked hard, trying to make sense of it all. Later that night, I returned home. The moon was full and bright, shining into my flat. I kept replaying those photos in my mind. I thought I felt cold fingers on my neck. I spun around, but no one was there. My hands shook as I held my tea. I couldn't escape the memory of that box. Days rolled on and things got weirder. Items I cataloged kept appearing back on the shelves. I recognized them. It didn't make any sense. One evening, I thought I saw something move. A soldier in a tattered uniform standing still. I froze, unable to breathe. Then I found a note in that box. It simply said, "They're watching." My heart raced. What did that mean? I wanted to flee the museum, but my feet felt stuck. It used to be my safe space. Now it felt like a haunted maze. One afternoon as I was working, I heard a whisper. Words I couldn't understand. It echoed through the floor. I turned, but no one was there. Fear swept over me like ice. I couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong. I had to know what Luna 1989 meant. I had to know what was waiting for me in the darkness. Each night when I closed my eyes, visions of those photographs haunted me. As days turned into weeks, I felt myself slipping. Was I going mad? Or was there something truly sinister here? The shadows around the museum began to feel alive. I didn't return to the museum immediately. I needed time to gather myself. The moon loomed outside my window, a constant reminder of the secrets it held. I spent days nursing a growing dread, wondering if the whispers would come for me again. It was a rainy evening when my phone rang. I stared at the screen. It was Robert, my old friend from the engineering department. He had always loved a good mystery. Maybe he could help. "Hey, you sound off," he said when I answered. "I found something weird at the museum," I admitted, trying to keep my voice steady. "Like what?" I hesitated. Should I tell him? "There's this box labeled Luna 1989. It has photographs of strange objects on the moon. And well, it's like the museum is changing." Robert let out a low whistle. "Sounds like quite the find. You should go back and dig deeper." I wanted to argue, but there was an itch in my mind. What if that box held answers? 2 days later, with a mix of anxiety and determination, I returned. The air inside felt different, thicker somehow. A looming stillness settled around me as I made my way to my usual work area. I avoided the box. My heart raced every time I thought of it. As I cataloged other items, shadows flickered in my peripheral vision. I felt eyes on me. But when I glanced around, it was always just empty space. When the clock struck 3, the lights above flickered. I jumped, and the air seemed to thicken. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of movement. I turned quickly, but only a wooden chair creaked under its weight. I stepped closer. That's when I saw it. A small rectangular object at the edge of my workspace. It was shiny, almost metallic. I crouched down to inspect it. It felt cold against my fingers. No label was attached. I looked around, feeling paranoid. Where had it come from? Sifting through the organization notes, I realized the item didn't belong to any of my records. A sick feeling pooled in my stomach. Suddenly the static returned, pulsing like a heartbeat, right in my ear. My heart thundered as I stumbled back, nearly colliding with the shelf. The noise felt alive, surrounding me. I could hear whispers again, soft and incomprehensible. They echoed with urgency, growing louder. The words twisted in my head, wrapping around me like a vice. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. Then I saw the figure again. The soldier stood at the end of the row, staring with hollow eyes. This time he took a step forward. "Help! Me!" he rasped. I froze, paralyzed by the weight of his gaze. Then everything went dark. I snapped awake on the cold floor, gasping for air. A pulse-like thrum in my ears made it hard to focus. I blinked rapidly, trying to shake off the disorientation. The dim light from above painted the room in shades of gray, and an eerie silence hung around me. I scrambled to my feet, glancing wildly around the museum. The soldier was gone. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but it was quickly overshadowed by a sense of dread. I remembered the box, the whispers, and that unsettling metallic object I had found. I needed to get out, but what if the mystery was just getting started? I glanced at the workspace. The object lay there, untouched, still gleaming ominously. Curiosity wrestled with fear, pulling me closer. I inched forward, heart pounding, and picked up the rectangular piece. It felt heavier than I expected. The static returned, vibrating in my bones. I dropped the object as if it were on fire. It clattered against the floor, and silence filled the room again. Scared, I turned my back to the workspace. What if there was more in here than just artifacts? I felt urged to leave. Yet that nagging itch wouldn't let me be. Was I really willing to abandon my questions? Before I could process my next move, I heard a soft rustling coming from behind me. Adrenaline surged, and I turned slowly. My breath caught as my eyes fell upon the entrance. A flickering light caught my attention, illuminating a path deeper into the museum. Against my better judgment, I shuffled towards it, driven by an invisible force. The hallway felt endless, the shadows stretching to pull me in. As I walked, I caught glimpses of other exhibits, things I had never seen before. Strange equipment, oddly shaped rocks, and faded photographs adorned the walls, all whispering secrets just out of reach. At the end of the hall I found a doorway slightly ajar. Hesitating, I pushed it open. Inside, the dim room made my skin crawl. It looked like a former office filled with documents plastered across every surface. Papers were strewn everywhere, and the air smelled stale. With everything I had discovered, I expected the place to be abandoned. Instead, my eyes landed on a desk cluttered with notes and a single photograph placed in the center. My heart raced as I stepped forward to grab it. The image portrayed a group of astronauts, their faces blanketed by shadows. Behind them loomed a massive structure, something like an ancient monument standing on the barren moon surface. I felt a chill creep up my spine. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the room. The door I had entered burst open, slamming against the wall. Instinctively I ducked, heart racing at the chaos. "Who's there?" a voice shouted, booming and filled with authority. I knew I wasn't alone, and the threat was very real. I needed to get out. But how? The whispers began again, this time calling my name. I darted to the side, trying to find a place to hide as the footsteps grew closer. I wasn't just dealing with artifacts anymore. Something much darker was lurking in the shadows, and it intended to find me. My heart raced as I crouched in the shadows, desperate to remain unseen. The officer's footsteps echoed through the small office, puncturing the silence with each heavy thud. I pressed myself against the wall, hoping the darkness would swallow me whole. "Show yourself," he shouted again, his voice reverberating off the walls. I peeked out from behind a stack of documents, my eyes darting around for something, anything that could help me escape. Just then, a glint from the desk caught my eye. It was the photograph. I had nearly forgotten about it. I decided I couldn't leave it behind. Maybe it held the key to understanding what was happening. Or maybe it was just another dangerous thread in this unraveling mystery. I slowly inched back toward the desk, trying to stay low. The officer was making his way closer to my hiding spot, scanning the room with narrowed eyes. I heard his breathing, calculated and steady, almost as if he could sense my presence. Just then, the whispers returned, louder and more urgent than before. They pulled at my mind, urging me to pick up the photograph. I hesitated, torn between my need for answers and the risk of being discovered. With each breath, I felt a growing pressure in my chest. I couldn't stay silent anymore. The thrill of the unknown pushed me forward. I snatched the photograph from the desk, and for a moment, felt a surge of power coursing through me. But my victory was short-lived. The officer turned sharply, locking eyes with me. "There you are," he yelled, lunging toward me. Panic erupted and I bolted from my spot, clutching the photograph tightly against my chest. I dodged past the desk and rushed toward the door. "Stop!" he barked, but I didn't look back. My instinct screamed for me to run. I burst through the doorway, nearly colliding with the wall of the hallway. I sprinted down the corridor, my feet pounding against the floor, the sound of his voice fading behind me. I turned corner after corner, fueled by adrenaline, the whispers urging me onward. The flickering light was dimming with every step, but I kept pushing myself further into the unknown. Suddenly, the flickering stopped, plunging me into darkness. My heart dropped as I skidded to a halt, the shadows swallowing me. I strained to listen, my breath hitching in my throat. Could he still be after me? Then I felt it, a different presence, one that made my skin crawl. Someone was right behind me. I spun around, prepared to face whatever was in the shadows. But as I turned, I was met with nothing but darkness. Then a shrill laugh split through the air, chilling my bones. "You shouldn't have come here," it echoed, each word oozing with malice. Panic clawed at me and I stumbled backward, desperately searching for a way out. I mustered every ounce of courage and yelled, "Who are you?" My voice trembled as the laugh continued, growing louder, drowning out my thoughts. Just when I thought I was losing my mind, the darkness seemed to shift and something, a shape, began to materialize. My heart dropped as I realized I wasn't alone anymore, and that chilling presence was not what I had expected. The shape in the darkness took on a form, but it was not human. I squinted, desperately trying to see through the shadows, but my heart raced faster with each second. A figure loomed larger, jagged edges flickering against the faint light that fought to push back the darkness. "Who are you?" I repeated, my voice shaky, but I was determined to stand my ground. The laughter stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that seemed to mock my fear. Then it spoke, low and soft. "What brings you to this forgotten place?" Its voice sent shivers crawling down my spine, each word dripping with condescension. I was just looking for answers," I stammered. I could feel the photograph slipping from my fingers, but I tightened my grip on it. "I don't want any trouble." "Answers?" it echoed, a dark humor bleeding through its tone. "You think the truth lies beneath these walls?" I could feel my pulse quicken. Every instinct told me to run, yet something anchored me in place. "What do you know about the photograph?" I asked. The figure flickered again, its form shifting as if it thrived on my uncertainty. "Much more than you do," it hissed, "and yet it's still out of reach." Before I could respond, the shadows around me seemed to thicken, crawling up the walls and swirling around the floor. My mind raced. Had I just been lured into a trap? Were the whispers guiding me towards my doom instead of salvation? But then I remembered the urgency of my situation. The officer. I couldn't let him find me. I had to stay focused. "Why are you here?" I demanded, not letting the figure's games rattle me. "What do you want?" "You have crossed paths with forces greater than yourself." The shadow paused, its eyes glowing faintly. "And some doors, once opened, can never be shut." "I just want to leave," I breathed, every word tinged with desperation. I backed away slowly, hoping to find a way out, but the darkness surrounded me, suffocating. It stepped closer, its form hovering ominously. "Do you think escaping is an option?" It glanced toward the back of the hallway. Someone else approaches, and they will not be friendly. A chill washed over me. That voice, the officer. He was back on my trail. My heart thudded painfully in my chest as the weight of the situation crashed down. I had to run. Just as I turned to flee, the shadow lunged forward. "You can't escape your fate!" it shrieked, and the darkness pressed tightly around me like a vice. With one last burst of courage, I bolted toward the far end of the hallway. I had no idea what awaited me there, but staying here felt like an inevitable end. Just as I reached for the door handle, I could hear the officer's footsteps grow louder behind me. The air crackled with tension. That was when I realized the photograph was warm against my skin. What could it possibly hold? As I flung the door open, ready to dive into the next unknown, I knew I was diving headfirst into a world that was many shades darker than I could have imagined. But at that moment, the only thought I could grasp was survival. I stumbled through the door and into another dimly lit room. Cold air hit my face and I shivered uncontrollably. This was nothing like the hallway I'd just left. It felt empty, yet oppressive, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. My eyes adjusted gradually, and I took stock of my surroundings. Tall, concrete walls loomed over me, covered in strange markings. The air smelled of dampness and decay. I felt the photograph in my pocket, still surprisingly warm, and instinctively pulled it out. A flicker of light made me turn. A lamp buzzed in the corner, casting a weak glow. I rushed towards it, craving illumination. As I got closer, I noticed a table strewn with old yellowed papers and broken machinery. Curiosity pushed me forward. That's when I saw it. A small metallic object, oddly shaped. It resembled a cylinder with intricate engravings. Maybe it was connected to the photograph. I bent down to inspect it, my heart racing. The moment I reached for the cylinder, a loud clang echoed from the hallway I had just escaped. Fear spiked inside me and I froze. The officer was getting closer, and I couldn't let him find me here. I grabbed the object, clutching it in my palm. It felt warm, just like the photograph. I couldn't afford to think about the implications. I needed to hide. I quickly scanned the room and spotted a doorway at the far end. I bolted toward it, the clangs of footsteps resounding ever nearer. I paused briefly, my breath hitching. I had to decide, should I investigate more or keep running? Then, I heard a voice, familiar but tinged with urgency. "You can't hide forever." The officer's voice sent adrenaline coursing through my veins. I was being hunted. I dashed through the doorway, praying for safety, but stumbled into a narrow corridor lined with locked doors. The tension surged, and I felt trapped. My heart pounded louder than the footsteps I could still hear behind me. With trembling hands, I twisted the handle of the nearest door. It creaked open, revealing a dark room. This felt like another mistake, but there was no time. I jumped inside and closed the door behind me. I leaned against it, trying to calm my breathing. I couldn't stay here long, but I needed a moment to think. As my eyes adjusted, I caught sight of walls adorned with photographs, images of the moon landscape, shadowy figures standing by strange artifacts. "What is going on?" I whispered to myself, suddenly overwhelmed by questions. Why were these photos here? What had the Soviets found? Then, like cold water, realization hit me. If they found these objects, maybe they held the answers I sought. But at that moment, I felt another shiver run through me. Not from fear, but from the weight of discovery. I had to find out what they knew, and I had to do it before the officer caught up to me. But just as I turned to examine the photographs, I heard the door rattle. Panic surged. I had to keep moving. I needed to get out before I truly became trapped. Suddenly, the memory of the photograph burned in my mind. Whatever was unfolding, I was right in the center of it. I reached for the doorknob, ready to brave the unknown again. But before I could escape, a voice echoed from behind me, chilling me to the core. "You're not alone." I spun around, skin prickling. Someone else was in the room. I took a step back, my breath caught in my throat. The person in the shadows emerged, a figure cloaked in darkness. My instinct screamed to run, but I was rooted to the spot, unable to make a sound. "Who are you?" I finally managed to ask, my voice shaking. The figure stepped into the dim light, revealing a young woman with intense eyes. She looked just as startled as I felt, but there was a glimmer of recognition. "You," she said, her voice a whisper. "I saw you in the photographs." My mind raced. I had never seen her before, but something about her seemed familiar. "What are you doing here?" The question tumbled out, filled with urgency. "I'm looking for the same thing you are," she replied, glancing nervously at the door. "The objects. They're important. More than you know." Before I could respond, the rattling at the door intensified. The officer was gaining on us. I could feel time slipping away. "We need to get out of here," I urged, my heart racing again. She nodded, a mix of fear and determination crossing her face. "There's a way out, but you have to trust me." I hesitated. Trust was a risky gamble, especially when I had just met her. But there was no other choice. I felt a strange connection to her, like she understood the weight on my shoulders. Together we hurried toward the back of the room as the door splintered under the pressure of the officer's efforts. I could hear him shouting, a frenzied urgency taking over his voice. "You can't escape." The woman pointed at a vent high on the wall. "We can reach that. It's our only chance." I nodded, adrenaline pushing me forward. She scrambled up onto a large crate, and I followed, clambering beside her. I could hear the door creak ominously as it finally gave way. With a swift movement, she hoisted herself into the vent, pulling me up after her just as the officer burst into the room. I could see the shock on his face as we disappeared into the narrow space. The darkness enveloped us, but I focused on moving. The air was stale and musty, but I had no time to dwell on it. I crawled behind her, the sound of footsteps pounding against the floor below mingling with our hurried breaths. "Go left at the next turn," she directed, her voice steady despite the chaos. I followed her lead, my mind racing with questions. "Who are you? What do you know about the objects?" I asked between gasps. "I'm Anna," she replied urgently. "I've studied them, their energy. It's not just relics. They're connected to the photographs you found. They're a key to something bigger." We rounded another corner, but suddenly the vent shook. "They're trying to get us. We need to hurry." Anna's urgency kicked my fear into overdrive. Just then, I heard a noise behind us, a loud metallic bang. It echoed through the vent, sending my heart into overdrive as panic surged within me. What if we didn't escape? What if they caught us? "We're almost there," Anna cried, her voice breaking the mounting dread. I followed her toward a flickering light ahead. Then, just as we reached the end of the vent, a strangled scream filled the air from below. In that moment, something inside me clenched. We weren't alone in this fight. But who were we really up against? I needed to know more as we prepared to drop down into yet another unknown. As I peered through the grating of the vent, the flickering light revealed an empty storage room below, cluttered with boxes and old machinery. My pulse raced. Where were we? I wondered if it was really safe to drop down. Without waiting for me, Anna swung her legs over the edge and whispered, "It's okay, just jump." I took a deep breath and pushed myself down, landing softly on the dusty floor. I quickly scanned the room. The only way out seemed to be a door on the far wall. It looked thick, solid. Would it lead us closer to freedom or right back into trouble? "Come on," Anna urged, already moving toward the door. My instinct shouted to go slow, to think things through, but her focus made me push back my doubts. I followed closely behind, glancing nervously over my shoulder. The sound of footsteps, muffled but growing louder, echoed through the building. She reached the door and pressed her ear against it, listening intently. "I think it's clear," she said, her voice low. "We need to get out before they find us." I nodded, feeling the weight of the moment settle in. "What's the plan?" "Just go. I'll follow," Anna replied, her intense gaze locking onto mine. With a lurch in my stomach, I turned the handle and stepped outside. Bright light flooded my eyes as I emerged into a narrow hallway. It was cluttered but empty. No sign of our pursuers. I breathed a sigh of relief but knew we weren't out of the woods yet. "Which way?" I asked, scanning the various doorways on either side. Right, she said, pointing down the corridor toward a door that looked less fortified than the others. We can take the stairwell. It should lead us to the basement. There's a back exit. Before I could protest, Anna had already started moving. I followed her closely, adrenaline surging. We reached the door and she pushed it open. The stairs spiraled down into darkness. Stay close, she said, as she deftly took the lead. Each step we took echoed loudly. I imagined the officer and his team right behind us, ready to pounce. We reached the bottom of the stairs and the smell of damp earth filled the air. I could barely see, but Anna led us into the next room, where daylight seeped through a small window. My heart raced, but we weren't safe yet. Looking past her, I noticed a strange object in the corner of the room. It looked out of place, shiny and metallic, unlike anything I had seen before. Wait, I said, slowing down to examine it. What? We can't stop now, she hissed, but I was already moving closer. It could be one of the objects you mentioned. Anna stepped up beside me, her eyes wide. It can't be. That's not supposed to be here. I reached out, feeling an odd pull towards it. What do you mean? Those are prototype samples. They were stolen. She trailed off, looking uneasy. Stolen? I echoed, my mind racing with implications. Suddenly, the door at the top of the stairs slammed open. The officer's voice thundered down. They went this way. Anna grabbed my wrist, panic flashing in her eyes. We have to go. Now! I turned, torn between what I was about to discover and the impending threat. The officer was closing in, and the object hummed softly, as if beckoning me to stay. But what choice did I have? I let Anna pull me toward the window, the sounds of our pursuers growing closer. As we climbed out, I caught one last glimpse of the object. Something was off. It felt important, like it held secrets we needed to unlock. We hit the ground rolling, desperate to escape, but as we scrambled to our feet, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The moment we hit the ground, a wave of adrenaline pushed me into motion. Anna and I raced across the open space, the sharp chill of the air biting at our exposed skin. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting the officer to emerge from the window behind us. We had a slim head start, but even that felt precarious. Where do we go? I gasped, scanning for any signs of escape. The clearing was surrounded by a thick forest, its shadows merging with the twilight approaching from the horizon. There's a path, Anna said, pointing toward a narrow trail barely visible through the underbrush. We can lose ourselves in the trees. I nodded, my heart pounding. We both darted toward the path, branches slapping against my face as I pushed forward. Each step felt like a gamble. One wrong twist and we could end up right back where we started. As we plunged into the foliage, the sounds of pursuit grew faint. It was quiet now, apart from the rustling leaves and our hurried breathing. I could hardly believe we had made it this far. But with each new step, anxiety settled over me like a cold blanket. Where were we running to? What would we find out there? Do you think they'll follow us? I asked, trying to catch my breath. Not if we keep moving, Anna replied, determination knitting her brows together. But we need to figure out what that object was. If it truly is what I think, it's bigger than us. What do you mean, bigger than us? I asked. Like, dangerous? She hesitated, her eyes scanning the path ahead. If they were planning to use it for something, then yes, it could be dangerous. I swallowed hard. But if it's important, don't we have to go back for it? No, she snapped, her voice low but intense. If they catch us now, we won't get another chance. We can't risk it. We pressed on, branches scratching my arms, the darkness closing in around us. Finally, we reached a clearing, moonlight pouring in. It illuminated a small run-down cabin, half hidden by thick undergrowth. Should we check it out? I asked, pointing toward it. We might find something valuable there, Anna said cautiously, but it could also be a trap. Before I could respond, a sudden crack of twigs echoed behind us, freezing my blood. Eyes darting to the trail, I gripped Anna's arm tightly. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. "Yeah," she replied, her voice tense. We ducked behind a tree, hearts pounding like drums. I peeked out just as a shadow emerged from the forest, creeping closer. It was a figure, and in the faint light, I recognized the outline. "It's him," I said, panic rising in my throat. "Who?" Anna asked, her eyes wide. "The officer from before. He found us." Before we could make a move, the cabin door creaked open, revealing a dark silhouette. A chill ran down my spine as I realized something was waiting inside, not just a hiding place, but something more. Then everything went dark. The night shifted and warped around us like the world was being swallowed whole. I couldn't breathe. I could barely think. All I knew was that my reality was about to fracture, and we were caught right in the center. I awoke with a start, gasping as I struggled to piece together my surroundings. The darkness had enveloped me, but I could feel the dampness beneath me, a cold, concrete floor, rough against my palms. I pushed myself up, blinking rapidly as my eyes adjusted to the dim lighting. Anna was beside me, her face a mask of disbelief and fear. "Are we—" she started, but her voice faltered. In that moment, we both realized we were no longer outside. The cabin, the forest, everything had vanished. We were in some kind of underground bunker, the air stale and heavy. Flickering fluorescent lights cast long shadows that danced along the brick walls. An unnerving stillness filled the space, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "Where are we?" I whispered, anxiety thick in my throat. She shook her head, focusing on the heavy metal door on the far side of the room. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here." I stood, rubbing my arms to ward off the goosebumps creeping up my skin. The whispers from earlier had died down, replaced by an eerie silence. I glanced toward Anna. Her expression was tense as she scanned our surroundings. "Do you think he caught up to us?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper as I stepped closer to the door. "He has to be close," she replied. "We need to stay quiet." I nodded, moving toward the door with guarded anticipation. Anna joined me, her eyes darting to the tiny window embedded next to it. We both pressed our ears against the cold metal, straining to hear any signs of movement outside. Then, behind us, we heard it. A soft hum filled the space, resonating against the walls, almost like a heartbeat. Instinctively, we turned, our eyes widening in disbelief. In the center of the room was an array of strange artifacts, glossy rocks, metallic objects, and blurred photographs, all eerily reminiscent of the exhibit I had stumbled upon at the museum. My heart raced as I recognized the power shifting within these relics, something palpable stirring in the air. "What is this?" I breathed, stepping closer to the closest artifact, a dark, smooth stone with intricate carvings winding along its surface. Anna's eyes reflected deep concern. "They shouldn't be here. This is a research facility. Everything is connected." I raised an eyebrow, trying to understand her logic despite the urgency of the situation. "What do you mean?" Her gaze didn't waver from the stone. "The objects, the whispers, they are linked. They're a doorway to something otherworldly. If they found us here, they know we're onto them." "Who's they?" I asked, feeling my pulse quicken. "The people who monitor this stuff, the ones behind the projects to harness whatever energy the objects hold." A sudden crash echoed from outside the door, making me jump. "We have to go," I urged, casting one last glance at the objects. Something told me we needed to gather information, but there was something more pressing, our survival. Just as if sensing our urgency, the door creaked open slowly. I darted back, heart pounding as a dark figure stepped inside, silhouetted against the harsh light. The officer's face was twisted with rage, but before he could speak, Anna sprang into action. We sidestepped him, crashing into a stack of boxes. "Run!" she shouted, and without thinking twice, we dashed past him into the corridor beyond. The hum returned, louder now, as though the space itself was alive. We barreled down the dim hall, fear igniting every muscle in our bodies. The shadows became merciless as we dodged through doorways, desperately seeking freedom. "Where are we headed?" I shouted between breaths, adrenaline propelling us forward. "Anywhere that's not here," Anna yelled back, determination fueling her steps. As we rounded a corner, we halted abruptly, finding ourselves face to face with a large control room glowing with screens and indicators. I glimpsed a flicker of the photographs, those same shadowy figures, and pieces of equipment that looked like they were pulled right from a science fiction movie. "Is that?" Anna trailed off, her eyes widening. "Everything we've been tracking," I murmured. The weight of understanding settled in. What lay before us was not just a life-threatening situation, but a treasure trove of information. But time was running out. The officer could be hot on our trail. "We can't stop now. We have a chance to find answers about—" "No!" Anna's urgency sliced through my thoughts. "We need to keep moving. We can't get caught here." With resolve, I nodded at her. "Right." We pushed through another door, flying down another hallway, though the pull of the control room haunted me. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were meant to uncover its secrets. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared from behind us, drowning out our pounding hearts. "We triggered something," Anna shouted, panic creeping into her voice. "Back to the control room," I screamed, and we turned on our heels, but before we could decide, the floor shook beneath us, sending vibrations rippling through the air. Confused and terrified, we were plunged into a darkness that felt alive, almost as if the very essence of it was waiting to consume us.